Numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast. So there I was. This is episode number 121. I could teach a monkey to fly in 2 months.
You can never go wrong with monkeys. We had a couple other titles. The airfield was right where I left it. First Ground Combat Mission. Half-empty magazine. All of them
Half-empty
good.
Shit, he had 4 rounds. Four rounds.
Okay.
And that's it. Oh. What a great, another great, fabulous guest. Stories that just, you scratch your head going, oh my gosh. And
this one was indeed a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Hey,
everybody, real quick, sponsor this week is HelloFresh. Get a free breakfast item for the life of your subscription at HelloFresh.com/free. So there I was. We'll talk more about that during the show, but we're grateful to have them back and help bring these stories to you. And then we've got Dr. Todd Wolfman. Wolfman became a tanker aircraft commander.
Thank you, Wolfman.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Huge.
Here's the thing. I'm curious, how do they let you be a surgeon and handle scalpels and all that stuff when you throw money at knuckleheads like us?
It shows a lack of judgment, for real. I'm glad you do show a lack of judgment. We're very appreciative and humbled, but come on, man. Really? They trust you with a scalpel?
Yeah.
Yeah, they say the same thing about us in airplanes.
Yeah. Well, that's true. In fact, that was almost a show title, right? They shouldn't trust us with a potato gun.
That's right. We had a lot of opportunities for show titles with our guest LoJack, which
will make
LoJack itself is a great story, but that's for our Patreons. Extra.
That's for you Patreon contributors. Only you will know how LoJack came to be. Go to sotherewas.us/Patreon and join us. Join us there and find out how that came up. We haven't done an extra for a couple of weeks because we had 2 weeks off, but they're back. They're up and running. We had one with Bacchus I posted a couple days ago, and now we're going to post this one with LoJack.
LoJack.
A couple other thank yous to get out of the way. Anonymous. You know who you are.
Thank you, Anonymous.
She sent us $100. Thank you.
Once again, very humbling. Very humbling.
Indeed.
And our new section lead, Lawman. What the hell?
Yeah,
thank you, Lawman.
Indeed. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. So then he's spending time with the grandkids, and since he was in 214, has been nicknamed Pappy.
Which is very apropos, right?
Indeed.
That could be a lot worse.
Right? Yeah. Then there's Caesar.
Yeah. You want to read that?
Okay. Sure, yeah. I asked him if he wanted a dedication, and he said, hey, just give a shout-out to all our reactor and engineering departments on the carriers for keeping the screws turning and the lights burning, the water flowing, and the cats steaming. The enlisted guys and gals on those departments work their tails off. And he's not wrong. Those big aircraft carriers don't steam around on their own. It takes, I don't know, about 4,800 people to get those 200 pilots on and off the deck.
It takes a small city, for real.
It does indeed. Yeah. So, hey, to all of you who work in the bowels and guts of those aircraft carriers, God bless you. It is a seemingly thankless job, but truly the nation appreciates it. Even many of those who don't know, they appreciate it. So, and to Master, who has been with us well over a year now, thank you for continuing to contribute. Steve Bates, much appreciated. And in the near future, we're going to have to go over, I'm going to do a complete list of everybody who is, especially those who've been with us a long time, a lot of folks over a year. He's one of the first ones that popped out at me. So if you've been giving over a year, don't take it as a slight, please. We're going to get to you and say thank you very soon, I promise. So, but we probably ought to read a couple of the reviews, Fig.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Go for it, man.
We got some new 5-star reviews. Best aviation podcast. This is my favorite, most entertaining and interesting aviation podcast. The varied guests and content are superb. Long may it continue. Cheers, Graham. Retired Army Air Corps soldier, British Army.
Nice.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. You didn't say it with a British accent, but oh well.
My British accent would offend everyone, so I just didn't.
Right? All right. The next one was Miss My Navy Flying Days. The camaraderie, the fun, the excitement, and occasional stress. You bring it all back with your guests and their stories. As an XP3 pilot, I love hearing the stories of other communities out there. The 1 hour plus podcast seemed like 15 minutes. Keep it up. Dean Chick Korea, PhD.
Thanks, Chick. And it does. Sometimes it feels like 15 minutes, and I look and I see the timer's at 1:40.
Right.
I'm like, holy cow, where did the time go?
Where'd it go?
How about this one? Set Brian more to aviation.
Okay. Brain? Maybe brain? I don't know. Oh, well.
I don't know. Set Brian. I work as an instructor on P-28s for a commercial flight training company in the UK.
PA-28s. What is a PA-28?
PA-28s. That's a
Oh, Piper. Yeah, okay. All right.
I usually listen to the podcast on Saturday morning as I drive to Cardiff for another day of students trying to kill me. The stories help get me into the right mindset for the adventure ahead with the students who only have to pass the aptitude test of having enough spare cash. Oh, that's some scary. That's some scary shit right there. The interviews are always interesting and often enlightening. We can sometimes be a little jargon heavy, but that's the price well worth paying. Well, we are in the aviation business, and we try our best to define all the jargon that we use.
Right.
And we use a lot.
So there it was.us/glossary. Your mileage may vary. Yeah, and that's from
Love it.
Clint
Great
Bud,
stories.
Arrows 6-1. So, yeah. Then our last 5-star this week is, all right, I'm going to offend some people here.
Do it.
Hard to ask for much more. I adore it. It's funny, and it's educational, and I adore how earthy and genuine it is. Hugs to you, Barks. Australia. Barks 787. So,
That was a horrible Australian accent.
I'm sorry.
Yes, but thank you for the 5-star reviews, everyone. We really are humbled and appreciate it. So thank you.
Indeed we are. So, hey, let's talk briefly about LoJack, and then we'll get into what he has to say. But it was right out of the gate funny with a.
Oh my gosh! Right? Yeah. His so there I was story. I couldn't wait to come back to it because it's funny. We were before the show started. We started playing the World War III song from the Dos Gringos, and I'll be damned if it wasn't a World War III song.
His opening story was almost the start of World War III. Absolutely.
Terrifying. It was actually terrifying when you think about it. As a guy that might have loosed the missile in
shoot down a MiG. Whoa.
Whoops.
Yep. And that was almost a show title too. You got the puck. Shoot. And I won't try to do the Canadian accent, but we had a Canadian listener with us on the live stream going, that's not a bad Canadian accent he's doing there.
You got the puck. Shoot. LoJack had a lot of energy, great stories. F-15C pilot, another one of those. I kind of lose track of how many of those guys we've had on. Right. And then did a tour as a JTAC, which it'll be described for you, but that's a Joint Tactical Air Control.
Yeah.
Joint Tactical Air Controller.
And what was the worst part of that tour, Fig?
Well, let's see. He
had to ride in a helicopter, for God's sake.
At the last second with 4 rounds in his rifle. Oh, my God. The worst part, getting on a helicopter. I couldn't get past that part.
I'm willing to go into battle without rounds. Just don't make me do it on a helicopter.
Yeah. There's a helicopter. It's waiting for you. And I couldn't get past. There's a helicopter. It's waiting for you. Shit. Can I walk? Can I hike in?
Right? It's probably a path through that minefield. I'll be safe. I'll be fine.
Then, he was fortunate enough to get transitioned to the F-22, and he talks about that. And he flew combat missions in the F-22.
He's our first Raptor pilot. Yeah.
What an amazing career. And then how I met him was he ended up in my C-130 Guard unit eventually.
Right.
And that was a treat as well.
I look at it like this. He wanted to marry his wife so badly, he was even willing to fly with Fig in the Air National Guard.
That's
just saying.
That is a fact. He gave up all the glory of the F-22 for a beautiful woman and the chance to fly with me.
There
Oops.
you go.
I know he's regretting the last part.
Well, there's that.
Yep. It worked out good for him.
Why don't we get out of the way and
get out of the way.
people hear about his regrets? Yeah.
He doesn't have any regrets. Come on, bro.
There you go. Hey, any advice for folks until next week?
This here is a true story
Don't sit on the jet.
about crossing the pond
Don't do it.
at night
Slow jack.
in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
All right, so there I was. It was 40,000 feet, alone and unafraid in my F-22, somewhere over eastern Syria, and got to track a MiG-23 for the first time, pop up in my shoot list. And I was listening to the Canadian mission commander speak all sorts of gibberish over the main fight freight, and he dropped the line on me. You got the puck, shoot! So we came off tracking the MiG-23, turned eastbound. My wingman and I are belly laughing as hard as we can at this Canadian mission commander, try to use standard 3-1 comm on us, and turned east. I ran in for the attack, put the JDAMs into my my weapon select, picked them off, and when I hit that button, it dawned on me that I was also tracking this MiG-23 that was over Western Syria. So there was about a split second in there where my sphincter just, as I was waiting for either an AMRAAM to come off and fly directly westbound towards this Russian MiG-23, or wait for the that familiar thump thump of the JDAMs coming off the jet. And luckily for me, I felt the thump thump and not the AMRAAMs come off.
Oh,
but that is
surprise,
how I
to say the least.
almost inadvertently started World War III, trying to decipher a Canadian mission commander.
And that is how all great aviation tales begin. And holy smokes, that's awfully tracking parallel to I'm the MFer that started World War III. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire tonight. And my co-host is also at home, aren't you? Hey, Fig.
Yes, I am. I'm in beautiful Kearney, Missouri, just outside Kansas City, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest today, LoJack, which is going to be a great story as well. But wow, that's how you start a story right there.
Right on. Yeah, man.
You got the puck, shoot.
You got the puck, shoot. Dude, it was. I'm sure we'll get into that later.
We'll circle back. Well, it's really, really great to have you, because I have heard some of your stories for a few years, and so now we're going to get them down in historical context.
I don't know if I want them in historical context.
Oh well, there's that.
We'll see.
Too funny.
So we normally start. How is it that you got the aviation bug? How did you get into flying in the beginning?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. My dad flew for TWA, right? Still waiting to grow up. My dad flew for TWA, so I kind of grew up with the aviation bug, I guess, from the very beginning.
That makes sense. That makes sense right there.
Yeah. And honestly, I never, I'd go flying with him in little GA airplanes and go non-rev around on some of his work trips, but I never really got serious about it and went off to, I wasn't exactly a stellar high school student, and I went to Northwest Missouri State University, where I was basically a professional fraternity boy. Didn't really drill down into a career path quite yet. Wasn't really ready for the college experience to be over, so I chased a girl to graduate school. Like most college romances, that didn't work out. And I realized that if I stayed on that track, I was probably going to wind up teaching or something, which isn't really what I wanted to do.
Ooh.
So my good buddy of mine up there was an ROTC, I kind of looked into that, but my time was running short being in graduate school. So I didn't want to stick around, do the 8-year plan. Right.
Right.
So I got in touch with an OTS recruiter, and he took like one look at my transcripts.
I bet.
But he's like,
we don't need anybody to sweep the restrooms this week.
Yeah, you're good, bro.
No.
But he let me go. He let me go take the aptitude test anyway. And man, I remember the phone call I got. He called me. He's like, "Well, dude, we got good news and we got bad news." I was like, "All right, hit me with the good news." He was like, "Man, you must have eaten your Wheaties that morning because I think you set like a record for the state of Nebraska or whatever on your little pilot aptitude, that little simulator thing they had you flying back then." But the bad news is you're still not going to get it. So,
oh shit.
But about a week later, the same dude called me and he's like, "All right, dude, if you can be in Montgomery, Alabama on Thursday, we had to drop out of OTS. You're in."
What?
So, yeah. So
Whoa.
I packed my shit up and threw my stuff into a storage unit and off I went to Montgomery, Alabama for officer training school. And that's how I got into the Air Force. But, I had flown with my dad a little bit, but I didn't have a PPL. I
was going to ask, did you have a rating?
Yeah.
Anything? No, but you had flight
shit.
time. You had flight time.
A little bit of flight time. And, and I'm downplaying the grades. When I got to graduate school, I kind of, got my stuff together a little bit, right? So, but, I got to officer training school and still, I didn't know how to march. I didn't know how to, I didn't know anything about the military. So I kind of had.
Yeah, but you were in the Air Force, so you still don't.
Yeah, I was like, shipped off. Yeah, it's like the Air Force is like, "All right, here's your Marriott Bonvoy registration."
That's so
get the points. Start that now. But I did kind of have like the moment there, right? Like, all right, this is going to be my career. I gotta get my stuff together a little bit. And did well enough there. I got picked up for NJET, which is Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training, which is a program in the Air Force where they send you to, there we go.
Wow.
Wichita Falls, Texas. Look at that guy.
Yeah.
So I put a picture of him up for those listening. I got a picture of him flying the tweet. Let's see to the
That's
tweet.
a mighty T-37 right there, isn't it?
Mighty T-37.
World's
So I showed up in
largest
Wichita
dog
Falls, Texas, and that's it. But when I showed up, they were like looking through my records, and they're like, "You don't have a pilot's license." I'm like, "No, didn't know I needed one." They're like, "Yeah, it's kind of important."
Really?
No, I don't. Yeah. So they gave me like 2 months before my class day started to go get a pilot's license, and I showed up at Kickapoo Airport in my brand new Air Force flight suit with second lieutenant rank on, and literally I walked through the hangars at Kickapoo Airport, and I found this old dude drinking a beer, and I was like, "Hey, are you a CFI or do you know a CFI?" And he's like,
Can you spell CFI?
CFI, right? Yeah. And I'm like, "Dude, I got a problem. I need a pilot's license in 2 months. Can you teach me to fly?" And he goes, "Son, I can teach a monkey to fly in 2 months. Get in the airplane." And that's how I got my PPL. So I flew his little Beechcraft Sundowner around Kickapoo for a month and a half, got a PPL, and started T-37. So now off we went.
That might be a show title right there.
Right.
What, son? I can
teach a monkey to fly in 2 months. Yeah.
So what year was that, LoJack? What time frame are we talking here?
I graduated from officer training school in 2004.
Okay.
So I actually hit my 20-year mark next month.
Well, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
And before we go too far, thank you for your service.
Indeed.
Thank you guys for your service. Appreciate it.
So that was post obviously 9/11, 2001. There was a shooting war going on.
There was a shooting.
So you were like, "Well, fuck, I'm in."
What was you were thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's 9/11, man. I was in the fraternity house, like I normally was, I guess, back then. Yeah.
Were you sober that morning?
That's debatable, but I remember that day well. That was my dad just retired from TWA, but my fraternity brothers knew that he was, an airline pilot, right? And they came running in and woke me up and took me out. And what a surreal experience, right?
Oh,
just
yeah.
like I'm sure we all have a like story of September
Yeah.
11th. But I remember standing around that TV with 20 of my fraternity brothers, right? Guys that you're normally not that solemn and And there, I mean, just it was deathly quiet, and everybody was just trying to deal with the emotion of the moment, right?
Process.
And that did, I downplay that story, right? But yeah, that certainly played a part, just like it did from everybody from my generation, I think, I mean, everybody from my year group, right? That we went through September 11th around the college time frame, and that, lit a fire, under us that, hey, inaction was what wasn't a choice. If we wanted change, we had to go do something about it. And, there's
the difference between the way you entered and the way Repeat and I entered. There wasn't a shooting war going on when we started. No. You came in when a shooting war was going on.
That's right.
Well, I mean, it's 20 years next month, right? And there's been a shooting war every day that I've been in service, right? I mean, and somewhere around the world, there's somebody in our career field that is deployed right now doing God's work,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely one of those things now as a father I try to pass on to my little girls, right? That, hey, this shit's not free. I mean, somebody is paying for it right now, right? They're over there, they're deployed, they're away from their family, their little girls, so that we can go out and, do back to school night like we just did tonight. And
you got that right.
Yeah.
So Wichita Falls, that's the international base. So you were there with
NATO.
NATO force guys.
NATO. Yeah. So I remember I had like Germans and some Italians in my class. I had Dutch instructors, which, I mean, that was a cool experience, right? Because you're getting a perspective from guys that, not just from other countries, but from different training programs, from, F4 guys that were, just took a break from the German F4 to come over and teach us how to fly. And,
so you got some cool perspectives.
Oh, crazy perspective, right? And we both, the three of us, we know what being a fighter pilot means to us, being in the U.S. military. And I think one of the coolest experiences from that is that, even no matter where you're from, if you choose this career field, you're kind of cut from the same cloth, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're kind of that. And, you got a different accent, maybe you grew up in a different part of the world, but man, when you go out there and you execute the mission together, you speak the same language. It doesn't matter where you're from, and it was a great experience getting to go through that program. So
we usually ask, this question, while you were in flight training, did you ever have your hand on the ejection seat handle? What kind of crazy shit did you see?
I don't know, man. Yeah. So I don't know if I had my hand on the ejection handle. I'm sure my instructors did at some point. But I told you, right? I came in. I didn't have shit for flight experience, especially compared to a lot of the other guys that were in the program. So, I thank the Lord that a lot of those instructors had some patience with me. But yeah, getting to fly the T-37, going straight from basically a Cessna into the T-37 was a huge learning curve, right? And going back and trying to teach myself how to fly instruments, I was using everything I had, and you certainly is a cooperate to graduate program, right? So you're leaning on the experience of the guys in your class, and they were patient with me too, and teaching me the basics of instruments just so I could get through the tests, right? And then, as you progress, you start kind of getting more on an even playing field with them as the days go on, and then you can start kind of contributing to the success of the group yourself. But yeah, so there are a couple funny stories from that. I told you there's a language barrier. I remember one of the Germans, he couldn't remember the phrase "no joy," right? So when you lose sight of a flight lead, you're supposed to call out no joy. And I remember sitting up there like number 3 in this formation or whatever. We heard this German come out like, Cider 3 is not very happy, because he couldn't remember no joy. So he was, you're like,
he's not
happy. And you're like,
what do you mean he's not happy?
Oh shit, he can't see us, like,
oh, that's great.
Yeah,
there's a literal translation,
a little bit of lost in translation. I'm sure everybody's
not very happy. Oh, that's funny.
He's not very happy.
That's a great picture for this story, right? So I was on my way. I'm a young fighter pilot to be, type it, just thinking I'm on top of the world. And I remember my first solo in that airplane, the T-38. They basically, sign you off And I mean, they shouldn't trust you with a potato gun, but here they are giving you a little mini jet fighter to go fly around North Texas with.
Right.
And I
potatoes.
took that.
Another title.
And I was trying to bend the wings off of that thing on my first solo. I mean, you think you're Maverick from Top Gun and coolest. If we had phones that could take selfies back then, that's all we would have been doing.
Oh, shit, right?
And I remember flying back into the pattern and just being like, I want to make this look good. Visor down. I remember they have a little mirror up here. I remember tilting that down, not so I could see behind me, but so I could see myself,
Right?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I get into the brake and I just roll that sucker and just plant the stick back and you feel the buffet of the jet as it comes across. And I rolled out and I'm like, I was completely lost. Couldn't see the airfield, right? And so I'm like, son of a, So I think I've done a
Did you call and get a vector?
180-degree break. No, of course not.
So what'd you do? You do like a 45 or something?
Yeah,
what happened?
You do what we do. You fake it till you make it, and then you're kind of like, well,
gosh.
shit. Gear down, flops down, and you're like, I think I kind of reckon this looks about right. And thank God, you pick up the airfield. It's about where you left it, right? There's not that much room to screw up there. But
right where you left
it. Man, that was pucker factor right there. Thinking like, dude, if I get lost in the break on my first solo, I think it's over. I don't know if I'm going to recover from that, but all's well. I mean, the airfield was right where I left it. Put it back around and landed, and the rest is history. And
so did anybody see your momentary?
Never.
Yeah,
never heard a word about it. In fact, I don't think I've ever even mentioned that story until now.
It's like Vegas. Then it never happened.
Never happened.
Right? Can't prove it. Nobody saw me. Can't prove a thing.
I knew where I was the whole time. I think it was everybody down there that got all jacked up or something. But
how many? So how many? When so T-38s, that was advanced jet training for you, right? Or after that, did you go to Holloman for like the fighter lead-in thing? I mean, how's that?
No, I did that straight from T-37s, T-38s, and I went straight on to fighter lead-in. So which is called IFF, Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals.
And is that right there at Wichita Falls, or
so I stayed in my apartment, and I think I had like a month off or something, and then went straight into IFF. And so you get your drop, right? So you have to track select, and for us, it was like RPAs or B1s or RPAs, remotely piloted aircraft, right? Drones.
Ooh, geez, that was a thing. That was a thing in 2004.
Yeah, I think that was just coming online.
Oh shit!
And then you had A-10s, F-16s, F-15Es, F-15Cs, and I knew that I wanted to go to the C model just because flying low for me was not going to happen. Back then your low level training was they give you a map of North Texas, which, it's got all these creeks and roads and valleys and trees and everything depicted on it. You sit there for days prior and you plan your low level route with checkpoints and timing and all that shit. The reality of it is you get out in the airspace and in North Texas in the middle of December, everything looks brown. I mean, there's nothing there's no hope.
Everything looks everything looks the same.
It's exactly the same. So,
yeah.
I mean, second time in my, UPT career, I'm getting lost flying around North Texas, right? I was having none of that. I was like, this flying low shit's for the birds. I'm not doing that. That's
go to Sporting Goods and buy yourself a Garmin GPS, man.
I don't even, I think they even have that now because they're flying the T-38C, so it's like cheating, right? Yeah, you get to pre-program it and follow the black line around. Yeah, but this was still clock to map to ground. And I remember sitting there looking at my little stopwatch thing, like, there should be a creek,
Right.
And there's been 4 of them.
Dried up. Yeah. Well, I think it dried up somewhere in the, Mosaic period or something like that. It never returned. I don't know how it made it on the map, but I got into formation stuff, and man, that's really where I came into my own. It was, formation work and air to air stuff, anything above 20,000 feet. So I knew I wanted to go to do something air to air, and the C model was available, so that's what I tracked. And then went from there. So the IFF program.
So you said C model. I don't know that you've mentioned it yet. You're talking about the F-15C.
F-15C. Yeah. Okay. The mighty Eagle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to get to track the C model, and then I went into, once I did that, then you basically go through an IFF program that's designed around the aircraft you track, right? So A-10 guys were going out and doing low levels and dropping their little blibbits on the range, and we were going up and doing kind of, an introduction to defensive, basic fighter maneuvers and dogfighting. And that was it, man. That's what started my air-to-air career.
Did you do F-15Cs at Langley?
I did not. No, I flew the F-22 at Langley eventually, but no.
I think I asked you this a while back. Father Mike Flanagan. Do you know him from the F-15 at all?
I do not.
Okay, that's okay. He was the one fighting he was in the guard.
He's the one that was with him and broke him.
Yeah, the F-15C that broke in half.
From
in
St.
DFM.
Louis, the St. Louis guard.
Yeah.
So
that was
Mike was
flight.
the other guy. he flew through the carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah, he watched it happen and then went down, and he's like, "Oh, this is a bad idea. There's shit gonna hit me."
Yeah, I was on my first assignment when that happened, though. That grounded us for like 4 months, because they had to go back and inspect every jet. Yeah, X-ray all the longerons. But
so
eventually,
Tyndall, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was going to say my F-20, my roommate, when I was at Langley, he was originally on the flight schedule to fly the F-15 that broke in half, and he had to come off the flight schedule that day for something, and then the rest is history, right? So
no way.
Yeah.
How about that shit?
Yeah. So I flew the F-15C at Tyndall in Panama City, and then off to Mountain Home, Idaho, just south of Boise, and flew it there with the 390th Fighter Squadron.
That was some good flying out there. Did you do Mountain Home with a Fig?
No, I didn't go to
We did that in 223 at one point. So
yeah. Mountain Home is out in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, but yeah, like you said, it's good flying. I mean,
it's a license to steal.
Yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, Boise's amazing. I got to live there for 3.5, 4 years. It was beautiful.
So you did a tour at Tyndall, and then another tour back to back flying tours. That's unheard of. I mean, for us, for us.
Well, remember though. Yeah, so Tyndall though was the the F-15 basic course too, right?
Oh, that was the IU, or what do you want to call? Okay.
Yeah, so you're there for to learn the ropes, and then you maybe get a few kind of tactical rides once you graduate there, before they ship you off, and then your first combat assignment, if you will, was Mountain Home. So
okay,
yeah, and then that was I got to Mountain Home in 2007. Into 2006, 2007. Okay. Didn't leave till 2010, and that was when the C model was being retired. So there was only, I think, one active duty C model squadron left. So follow-on back-to-back F-15 assignments were rare.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of guys were going straight to the F-22. If there were spots available for you, or you had to go back and instruct, or off to an alpha tour, which I did. And that's when I went off and worked with the Army for a few years. So
as a JTAC.
As a JTAC. So it's an air liaison officer, right? So you're the officer in charge of ragtag bunch of hooligans called JTACs. And I showed up. Well, so I didn't want to go fly white jets or go back and be an instructor for T-38s because it was really hard to get out of that world once you were in it. If they pulled you back in to be an instructor, kind of historically, you weren't. It was hard to get back into a pointy nose. But if you went off to do this JTAC thing, this ALO thing, it was, most likely you were going to return back to your weapon system.
To a tactical squadron. Okay.
Yeah. So I went off.
So it was a strategic move by you.
It was, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was strategic by me or if chose me, you know, or I was chosen for it, but whatever it was, it worked out. And that's, you know, because it gave me an opportunity to get back into a weapon system, which was great. But yeah, that squadron, they were just standing it up. And when I put my dream sheet down, I was like, oh man, yeah, I'll go to like the JTAC squadron in Hawaii. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Florida. And then I get my
Sit by
orders
the
and it's like,
pool.
it's Fort Bliss, Texas. And I'm like, where is El Paso?
El Paso, baby.
Yeah, 2 miles away from Juarez.
Yes.
So
I went to missile
showed up
school at Fort Bliss.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my my Air Force appreciation tour by far.
So was that where you were assigned, or where did you go through ALO training, or did you get trained? Did you go through JTAC training too?
Yeah. So all of that happened at Nellis. So I'm trying to remember how all this went down. While I was still in the F-15, I went back to Nellis, went through a couple courses there, back flew the F-15 for, you know, a month or so, and then actually PCS'd, permanent changer station, down to Fort Bliss. And the squadron was just standing up. I was attached to the 7th Air Support Operations Squadron, which is Air Force. But they are attached to the 1st Armored Division, which was just coming over from Germany. So they're doing this huge stand-up, and it's all because they need all this Army power to deploy for 9 months over into Afghanistan, to the real, you know, vacation spots of the world over there, and do the Lord's work, right? So, I mean, from the second my boots hit the ground over in El Paso, I mean, they were like, hey, you're going to deploy. And we are short JTACs, so we're sending you back to Vegas to get fully qualified as a JTAC, which JTAC stands for Joint Terminal Attack Controller, which is the Air Force guys that, you know, carry a gun around and a hard hat and a big radio on their back and call in airstrikes. So the Marine Corps is what, Anglico, right?
Well, the Marine Corps used to call them FACs, but FAC, which is Forward Air Controller. But believe it or not, I went through that school at
Lejeune, wasn't it?
No, it was up in, you know, special warfare training.
Naval Special Warfare. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I was in the first class that they called JTACs instead of FACs.
Oh, yeah.
That was in 2000. That was in 2003, I think, or 2002, 2003.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm familiar. I'm very familiar.
So, I mean, it was, again, for the umpteenth time in my career, I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground, right? Because I was an air-to-air guy. And I'm like, you want me to do what? You want me to call in airstrikes? Like, you guys realize I've never touched a bomb before in my life. Like,
it's kind of ironic, really.
I have no idea how any of this crap works. So, yeah, but they put me through JTAC QC. I got the qualification. I got to go through some really cool, like, CQT schools, kicking down doors with the real JTACs, and off I went. I mean, I was probably on the deck in El Paso for maybe 6 months before I was out the door to Afghanistan, and there I was, right? Air Force air-to-air guy calling in airstrikes in the soft underbelly of Kabul for 4 months.
So asking for a friend, which was worse, Afghanistan or El Paso?
Afghanistan was safer, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. That's saying something right there.
No, I mean that was like statistically proven. I mean, Juarez back then. If you've seen the movie Sicario, that was the same time frame when all the cartels were fighting each other. So, you go off base in El Paso. I mean, you'd see evidence of that everywhere.
That crap's been going on 40, 50 years. It got to the point when I was there for missile school, we used to, after the bars would close at 2 a.m., we'd wander down to Juarez, and then they shut it all off because a DEA agent was murdered, and they basically shut the border down. And so, if those that worked in El Paso and lived in Mexico were having 8, 9, 10 hours. It was basically to get them to say uncle, to turn over the guys who killed that DEA agent. So it was ugly. And then it was forbidden for us to go into Mexico.
Yeah.
So,
it was completely off limits when I was there. And I mean, so, usually when you show up to a base, right, you get like that little paragraph that says like, don't go to these strip clubs, right? That's like your off limits. Yeah. Right? And this was, it's like a volume of places. It was almost a list of places you can't go and not a list of places you can't.
Yeah, right. It's a short list.
But that tour though, man, I've got nothing but respect for the guys that, the 19-year-old kids that come out of high school and volunteer to go do jobs like, professional JTAC, because fighter pilots need heroes too, right? And those kids that do that every day and put themselves in harm's way like that, man, they are my heroes. There's some that, it was a humbling experience for sure.
Did you say you were out of Kandahar or Kabul?
We were just south of Kabul.
Okay.
So it was Fob Shank, right? So where Shank is.
Yeah. Okay. Why didn't you say that? Fob Shank.
We were at Fob Shank. Fob Shank.
Thank you.
So for your dear listeners who have no idea what we're talking about, Fob Shank, if you threw a dart at Afghanistan, it would be basically right in the center, right? Right.
Well, it's south of Kabul, but it's kind of in the terrain, right? And it's near the Pakistani border.
No, it's not that close to the Pakistani border. I mean, I should have looked.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking of Sharana, but I know.
I think you're thinking of Fob Sharana.
Sharana, I'm thinking of Sharana. Yep.
So, but we had task. I was the commander of the Bulldog, or the region down there. Right. So I had, I think 14 JTACs and probably, another 14 ROMADs. And so a ROMAD is a JTAC apprentice. It's your kid that's coming up. He's passed through his qualifications, but he's not quite a JTAC yet. He's got to go do a couple of deployments, prove himself. He's the one that's going to carry a lot of the radios, help your JTAC out. Usually they work in 2-man teams. Okay. So, coming again from the C model, right? Like with no leadership experience, no bomb dropping experience. Now I've got like this group of 20 kids that drop bombs that I don't know their job or, really no leadership experience to speak of, but they put up with me and we had a fantastic deployment. They did a great job.
Well, we got a question from Sedlow listening on Facebook. Who is your favorite platform, nation, or department to work with as a JTAC?
Platform? I mean, as a JTAC, right? You're always going to go with the A-10, right. I would say. So, they tend just going to strike fear in the hearts of anybody that sees it, especially that was a developed war. If you've heard the 30 millimeter go off once, you don't want to hear it again if you're on the business end of it. So,
don't want to be on the business end of that.
And typically, as a JTAC, when you're talking to other pilots, you want somebody who's confident that is trained in CAS, close air support, which is the mission set of what a JTAC calls in, right? You want somebody who speaks close air support. And those guys were so good because, if I had a JTAC out in the field who was new and he was struggling, that A-10 pilot was like playing psychologist. He was playing fighter pilot. You know what I mean? He was working that JTAC through what he needed to get through to get the effect on the ground. So those were always fun those guys were always great. The next one was Nation, I think, in there.
But let me put this picture up real quick while we're
best photo bomb ever. Oh, that's a great picture.
Yeah.
It's some terrorists all got their fingers in the air. Yeah, we're number one, and there's an A-10 rolling in on them from behind. So
I think that means you got 1 second to live, buddy.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, what a cool airplane, man. The nation that we got to work with when we were over there, for some reason we had a bunch of Kiwis, the New Zealand guys, that they had no. If I remember right, they didn't really have a fighting force. They had more of like an administrative corps that came over. But so like they were just there to kind of have a good time and, like make sure everybody else was doing good, it seemed like. So we'd go hang out with them all the time, man. And they were always sneaking wine and beer into the FOB too, which was great. So I got nothing but love for the Kiwis.
Nice.
They were awesome. And what was the third part? It said
department.
Department. Well, it's definitely not the Army. I'll tell you that much. They made They made our
Well, that kind of almost leads into your next story there, right?
Which one's that?
Hold on.
Ground combat mission with a half-loaded clip.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hold on a second. Before you tell that story, I want to know what your living conditions were like at Fob Shank as a, as the Air Force guy that's usually used to, carpet and that go.
Yeah.
What was that like?
My Marriott Envoy points me. Yeah. It was a tent in the middle of a forward operating base, dude. So we had, I think there were probably 12 of us actually living on Shank. The rest of the guys were kind of scattered around the area of operations, the AO. You walk in and you had a little tiny day room about the size of, a bedroom, I guess. And that's where we kept all of our ammo, our radios, our weapons, and everything was just out in the open, right? So we had grenades out there. It was just, it's like, looking back on it, it's pretty awesome, because you walk in and you got the, all your, just everything lined up, everything you need. And then we had a little TV, about the size of a computer monitor, and a couch that's probably been around since, I don't know, the 1920s. And then from there, you just, you kind of walk around that little partition and you've just got bunks. And so, you got your bunk and you can pull your curtain over or whatever. And not a whole lot of personal space, but, as the officer, I was right in the middle with all my guys, right? So there was no special treatment whatsoever. I was just the ALO, happened to be a JTAC as well, and was out there doing the mission with them. But, looking back on it, we had everything we needed. And that was, some of the, we did Thanksgiving there, Christmas there. It was, snow 2 feet. And then, 3 months later, it was 105 degrees. And it was, it was an amazing experience looking back, right?
Hold on. Was this El Paso or Afghanistan?
Either one. Right?
What, was this 2009?
2011, 2012.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
were you there?
Well, so we last time I was in Afghanistan was I call it the holiday tour. We had Thanksgiving, Christmas, 2010. That's in Al Udeid.
That's 2015. Yeah,
2015.
Okay.
Yeah, right. You were on your way through. You were flying F-22 still at the time.
Yeah, that was my combat Raptor tour right there. Yeah.
Okay, so I got a picture of the two of them up there in Afghanistan.
Yeah, we had already kind of hired LoJack on the down low, right? Kind of, you had a landing spot when you got off active duty at our unit.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I got sidetracked. What the hell was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So I think you were there because you showed up in what month of 2011 or 10?
Oh, it was September, October
of 11.
Yeah.
Okay, we left in February of 11. We were there October. Okay. I mean, fall. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all that.
Yeah.
Well,
so do you want to hear the half a clip of ammo and a full story?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you what. Hold on. Let's tease that real quick. So coming back with a half a clip of ammo, but what I want to do is take just a minute and say thank you to the folks over at HelloFresh who help keep bringing these shows to you. So there I was, folks, coming back from a family trip, and the fridge was emptier than a Vegas buffet at 2 a.m., and we were all kinds of over that whole eating out every night vibe. But guess what? We planned ahead and had HelloFresh set to deliver the very day we got home. No grocery runs, no standing in line, no staring at a half-empty fridge, wondering if ketchup counts as a dinner ingredient. Just a HelloFresh wholesome meal ready to go. I mean, how easy is that, right? With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. It's the perfect time to skip the hassle of meal planning and grocery store lines. Because let's be honest, who's got time for that with busier days ahead? With HelloFresh, you can save both time and money while cutting down on food waste. It's like having your own personal chef, but without the awkward small talk or wondering why they're in your kitchen or when are they going home. No wonder it's America's #1 meal kit. Plus, the menu's always got something new. With 50 recipes to choose from every week, you can easily mix it up. One week you're making tangy barbecue. The next you're whipping up some killer pasta. And if you're feeling fancy, swap in a protein or go all veggie. It's totally up to you. And don't forget to check out the HelloFresh Market for some extra goodies to level up your meal game. But what's the best part? You choose the delivery date that works for you. We scheduled ours perfectly for when we got home, and boom, fresh food, no stress. It was practically magic. And hey, if you're snapping pics of your culinary masterpieces, and a lot of people seem to be doing that these days, be sure to tag hashtag HelloFreshPics and @HelloFresh so we can all drool over your creations. Now, here's the best part. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/free. So there I was. That's right, one free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. Free breakfast for life just by heading to HelloFresh.com/free. So there I was. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. So yeah, first ground combat mission and a half a clip of ammo. Doesn't sound like a an ideal place to be.
No, it's not. Yeah, if you have the option to not be in that position, I recommend not being there. It was So we just put boots on the ground in Fob Shank, and we did the whole rotator over thing. Spent some time in Bagram, finally made it over to Shank, and the guys that we're swapping out with, the second our boots hit the ground, they're like, "See ya, we're out," right? And
who's your buddy?
There's
call us.
There's this. I think the shitter's over there. The shower's over here. There's your C2 area, and we're out. Goodbye. And so we're scrambling. We're jet lagged. We're all that. And we're trying to get the rest of our JTACs out around the AO. And me and my senior NCO were trying to put together like the schedule, right? Because one of our duties on Fob Shank is that we're the quick reaction force. We're the QRF. In case anything goes down that, outside of where we have another JTAC, we got to go. And we got to, do the JTACery, right? So it's like day 2, my guys are just scattering around. And,
it's like jackassery, only serious.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just organizing our crap and all of that. And I'm busy, doing the paperwork, trying to meet with the brigade commander and all of that stuff. And there it goes. There goes the alarm. It's go time. And so, man, my senior NCO, we go running over and we try to find the JTAC that is on the list to go on this mission. Can't find him anywhere. He is nowhere to be found, man. He is, turns out he was at the gym, like a good JTAC usually is, doing his, his 69th squat of the day. But we couldn't find him. And so the senior NCO looks on the alternate list and he's like, "Hey, it's you, boss." And I'm like, "Say what?"
What?
So I'm sorry, it's me. And he's like, he's shoving, radios on me, and and I'm still trying to get over the shock of it's go time. It is time to go. Put your money where your mouth is, right? So I grab my weapon, I grab my combat vest, I grab my radios, and I'm still like, I am in a freaking blur as, my senior NCO, guy that's, been around the block 1,000 times. And I was lucky to have him, but he's no nonsense too. He's like, he's ripping the rank off my uniform, by the way. And he's like, "Hey, you're one of the troops, dude. Go get him, Tiger." And, kicks me out the tent. And he's like, "The helicopter's waiting for you. It's over there." And I mean, you want to talk about a
hold on. You had to get on a helicopter too?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shit. That got real.
That's dangerous.
Okay, so I mean, let's put this in perspective, right? Let's roll the snowball back up the hill. Dude, a year ago, not even a year ago, I was an air-to-air fighter pilot flying F-15Cs, and now I am grabbing my my to go calling airstrikes on bad dudes, right? Yeah, and then there's the helicopter, and I'm watching Rangers get on it. And so, I mean, talk about like weak in the knees. I honestly remember like my knees like turning into jello, and it's like, and so off I run, and I go, walk up to the helo, and I don't even know at this point, right? Like it could have been a helicopter going anywhere. I don't know. I mean, it's just like my senior NCO literally pointed out a helicopter and was like, "Get on it, boss." And that's how that started. And I remember walking up to the Blackhawk.
Right.
And I don't think I'd ever been on one before, but it's not like you can just walk onto it, and there's no like ladder, and I'm 5'10" on my best day, right? And you as a JTAC, you're weighed down with like 4 different radios, all this shit. And like I said, my knees were basically jelly at this point. I remember walking up to it and I'm like trying to salvage any sort of pride that I have at this point, because I'm sure I look like a lost puppy, and like figure out how to get on this thing and still look cool. And, and I'm like, so I try kind of like doing that. And I'm like, that's not working. So I try going like back way. Finally, I just felt like the hand of God reach behind me and like pull me up by my vest, right? Plops me onto the helicopter. And
thank you.
I got a ranger on each side, and they kind of nod at me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here, and off we go. And, I'm trying my best to like pull out my map and be like, dude, which way are we going? Are we, I'm like trying to peek at like the instrument panel. Like, are we going north? Are we going west? Are we going east? And get anything? No.
You're just trying to build your SA a little bit, right?
I'm trying to, but it's impossible at this time, right? I'm thinking, somebody will tell me what's going on when we get there. So fold the map up, put it back, and I'm like, I should probably make sure, like look at my radio. So like I flip them on. I'm like, all right, cool. Battery. Like my senior NCO did me right. Like I got batteries. That's good. I got an antenna for something. I don't know what it's for, but we'll figure that out later. And I look down at my weapon, and I'm like, all right, that looks all right. And I look at my vest. I pull out flip it open, and I look at my first ammo clip. Empty. Second ammo clip.
No.
Third ammo clip. Empty. Fourth ammo clip. Empty. And so you wore 4 across here, right? And that's what I had, except for the one in my weapon. And so I don't know really at that time. I'm like, is it like kosher for me to like drop my magazine in a helicopter? I don't know. Right. But I'm kind of like flipping out at this point, right? So I drop my clip, and I've got 4 rounds in my magazine.
Oh shit.
And so I set that thing back in, and I'm just like, well, I mean, what do you I'm on for the ride at this point, right? Like the weapon I got are the radios on my back, right?
Yeah.
So off we go. And what I didn't understand at that point, though, is that, when you go face the dragon, usually when you're a member of the armed forces, for what we were doing anyway, the dragon is really small and we are really big, right? So we wound up, probably outnumbering whatever we were going to take care of at the time. And I never had to turn on a radio. I never had to touch my weapon, right? I was just literally there as a contingency to, I'm sure, a tertiary contingency. So I stayed quiet, and I stayed in the back, and they did, the Lord's work, whatever they were doing on that mission. We got back on the helicopters, and we flew home that night. So luckily for me, it was, 4 rounds and a rucksack full of hope and hope. And, fortune was on my side that evening, because I was wildly unprepared to go on my very first combat mission as a JTAC. And, but rolling the snowball back up the hill, right? Like I was so busy when we got boots on the ground with everybody else, getting the guys out to where they needed to go, putting, that I never took care of step one, right? I never squared myself away first. And that was a lesson I kept with me through the rest of my career, right? Take care of the basics and then go from there. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get all wrapped up into the minutia, dude. Step one, you're in a combat zone. Do you have bullets in your gun? Right? Like, do you have water?
It seems kind of obvious that you would check that beforehand, but I can see why, you just assume.
Yeah, dude, I get it. Like telling the story, I'm like, oh man, I'm losing all credibility with anybody that's listening right now. But at the time, I just remember, like, dude, it happened so fast, and off we were. And like I said, super fortunate that it was a completely benign mission, and typically on those missions too, if the QRF is being activated, right, it's not like the movies. You're not going down and kicking down doors. In this phase of the war, I'm sure other eras it was, but luckily for us, this was huge army fighting a very, very small, contingent of enemies. So, but I mean, what can you do other than have a little bit of a reflective learning moment, and take that back. And I did when we got back, man, I was 100% transparent with my guys. We all got in a room, and I'm like, gents, dude, I effed up. and this is what happened. Right. And, it's just like a fighter debrief, right? You make a mistake, you hold yourself accountable to it, and you take that opportunity to teach others what happened, what you did wrong, and how you're going to fix it and move forward.
Right.
And at that time, I remember thinking, like, that's all I know how to do. That's what my C model background provided me. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I think, everybody got a good laugh out of it. But it was also nice, too, because I think that every one of them also shared a story about, some time in combat, those guys that had been there before. And it was like, hey, dude, we've been there, man. Like, dude, I left once, I didn't have any batteries, or I, went out once and I didn't have any water, or, so it was a cool moment. But yeah, so 4 bullets and a rucksack full of hope, man.
So I'm going to be real honest with you, LoJack. The most terrifying part of that story was helicopter.
Yeah.
To me. Hey, boss, there's a helicopter. It's waiting for you. Get your ass on. And I'm thinking, helicopter.
I ain't going.
Whoa.
And this is,
I could be a deserter. I could do 30 wheelers in Leavenworth. I ain't getting on that thing.
So
can I walk? Can I?
Yeah.
Helicopter stories, man.
There's got to be a path through that minefield. I'd be fine.
In that time in Afghanistan, though, like, you would get lit up in helicopters more than anything else. I remember the first time in my career I ever got shot at was on that deployment in a helicopter. And I'm sitting there, and I think I was just going out to a COP or a FOB to visit one of the guys at an outpost. And I remember the gunner, like, pulls me up. He's like, Air Force, hey, come here. That guy down there, his name's Dishka Dan. He always lights us up right around here. And I'm like,
Dishka Dan.
I'm sorry. Like, what did you say? A guy named Dan is going to shoot at us? And, like, I mean, within 30 seconds, there's a guy with a Dishka. And then, they rip back at him. And then they're just like, like, see you tomorrow, man.
See you tomorrow, buddy.
And that was one of those, like, what am I doing here? I'm a
right?
pilot. Like,
man.
How did I?
That's great. Dishka Dan. Dishka. So for our listeners that aren't familiar with small arms, Dishka is a Russian, like a 50 cal equivalent, right?
Recoilless rifle. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dishka Dan.
Dishka Dan. I often think about Dishka Dan, and I hope he's still around.
Oh, yeah.
I hope he's doing well. Dishka Dan.
All right. Holy shit. Okay.
That's almost a title there too. But
I'm trying to get past the helicopter thing. I'm terrified of helicopters. All right. So did you know when you were there in Afghanistan that your follow-on was going to be with F-22s? Did you know going into it, or did you still? It was kind of up in the air, right?
It was up in the air. In fact, I didn't even. I'm trying to think what I wanted to go back to. I really wanted to go fly the F-15C at Lakenheath in the UK. I thought that would be an awesome assignment, but they were few and far between. And I came out of Afghanistan, and while we were there, I did a lot of work trying to build ROE, right? Again, going back to being a C model guy, dropping bombs, I felt like the area that I could kind of offer was just like, hey, let's liaise with the Army and try to figure out an efficient and effective way to get air effects on the ground, because the Army is very Army centric when it comes to, utilize or creating an effect, right? They think, they spell joint ARMY for the most part. And so I felt like I did probably what I lacked in knowledge about bombs and inexperience with, being a JTAC, I could make up for by at least engaging with the Army and trying to create like, hey, let's create a ROS here. Let's put these guys on station and see if we can create non-kinetic effects that will somehow, help your mission along. And through that, I got kind of a gig coming back to El Paso where I would brief the incoming brigade commanders, battalion commanders on, hey, this is what assets you're going to have available. This is what your JTAC can provide you, and, use them, because it's not just kinetic effects, it's non-kinetic effects as well, just doing a show of presence or a show of force. And, we have a lot of resources at our disposal that you don't. And if you bring us into the fight more through these means, we can help you out. And that caught some attention, I think. And I came out of that and was fortunate enough to get picked up to go to the F-22, which was I remember the day that I got that phone call because I had caught something from the Army, I'm sure. That was just, I mean, I was on my deathbed. I hadn't moved for like 2 days. And my cell phone rang and I woke up. I had like a fever of like 104. And I hear this voice like, "You're going to the F-22." And I'm like, I'm fucking hallucinating. Like, hung up the phone and, I was like, I'm going back to bed. And then, I woke back up, and it was, he's like, "Hey, this is Huevos, your boss. You're going to the F-22. Get in the squadron." And I mean, I swear, like you tell somebody they're going to go fly the F-22 or F-35, and that's a cure for anything. Because I mean, fever was gone. Right. I was up. I was like, shaved and, bounced my way into the squadron and it was on cloud 9. So
nice.
Yeah. So from there, I went back to Tyndall and went through the F-22 B course. And remember, I had flown now for 3.5 years. So I had some of my best friends still to this day I went through F-22 training with. And, they put you through, a bunch of simulators. When I say a bunch, I mean like probably 15. And then they're like, "All right, tomorrow you're flying the F-22. Go for it." There's no 2-seat version. So the first jet airplane I had touched for 3.5 years was Alone and Unafraid in F-22. And off I went.
What could go wrong?
Familiar.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
It's like the A-bomb guy.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
Here, go hover. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, oh, no kidding. So, So you said about 15 simulators?
It was something like that. By that point, it blew my mind a little bit because even just being out of the cockpit for 3 years, the F-15C was like, you go sit in a classroom forever and you read through all the manuals and you go fly a simulator that's basically like Microsoft Flight Simulator almost, right? Then you get to the F-22 and your classroom is a bunch of F-22 mock-ups. It's a full simulator that surrounds you with a monitor out front. So while they're instructing about like HOTAS and the fuel system or whatever,
they've actually got you doing it,
and you're doing it, right? And so
that's
it was
brilliant.
It was amazing training program, and it was breeze through it. The jet's super intuitive, and it was great. The hardest thing about an F-22 is not flying the airplane; it's learning to filter out all the information the systems are giving you, right? So, definitely pulling on that C model experience, but yeah, so did that. That program lasted, I think, only like maybe 3.5, 4 months or something. And
oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the picture we're looking at right now. That's the full bubble display, right? So he's got a picture on the board right now of an F-22 cockpit, and it's got visuals, 360-degree visuals all around. And that's actually like a bubble. The one I'm talking about is that exact cockpit, right? So you've got the side rails and the seat and the headset and all of that, but it's just got like a computer monitor up front. So you're not going to learn how to dogfight in it, but you're going to learn the systems. You have a left engine fire. Everything's going to, display the way it would. You can articulate the switches and stuff. So
that's awesome.
That's actually, I never thought of that. That's brilliant. They should do that with every airplane from the beginning of time. Sit in a mock-up, all right, do this, make the display change.
And it was,
it's easy with computer technology now, but holy smokes.
But, what a great jet, though. Man. The F-22. It's just,
so you said it was intuitive. How long did it take you to feel comfortable with that airplane?
It not long at all. I mean, so it's all fly-by-wire, right? So if, and I kind of equate it now. I fly the A320 series, the Airbus series, and it's the same kind of flight program, right? So you pull back on the stick and you can lift the velocity vector up to a certain pitch angle, take your hand off the stick and it stays there. And so flying the F-22, right? If I want to go 20 degrees nose up, I put the thing on the thing at 20 degrees nose up, take my hand off the stick and I can turn around and my ailerons are moving, my elevators are moving, my rudders are moving, my engines are moving, right? And it's just stable as can be. So
it knows what you want. It gives it to you. Put the thing on the thing. Sounds familiar, Fig.
Yeah. Said low here. Don't oversteer the gear on takeoff. Yeah, that's actually 100% true.
Come on.
Oh, well, Fig's having more microphone issues, apparently. Did you lose your mic?
I'm back. I'm having some technical difficulties in my mic. Cord
came unplugged.
Yeah. The thing on the thing. Is the thing on the thing
On the
again.
thing, man.
Yeah.
Put the thing on the thing, baby.
That's how you fly an airplane. It's just not that hard. Put the thing on the thing and you're done.
So the first time, okay, all right. So this is the weird. It's the first time I saw an F-22 demo. I thought I was watching a Class A mishap about to happen because the airplane was doing some shit I didn't think was possible.
Octaflugeron falling out of the sky backwards.
Yeah, because it's the nozzles, those exhaust nozzles were doing crazy shit, and so you don't have we in the Harrier when we moved the nozzles around, we had an extra lever for that, but. How does that work in an F-22?
No, it's all based on what the airplane thinks you want to do at the time and your flight regime and the environment around you and all of that, right? So the F-22 doesn't have a flap handle, for instance, right? So it knows in that regime of flight, like how to change the wing to give you the most effective lift for what it thinks you want it to do, for better or for worse. Yeah. So, and talking about the demo, the F-22 is an absolute demo machine, right? So,
it is.
It's that airplane, I think, puts on the best demo. And in all fairness, I haven't seen the F-35 demo, but I mean, I would, the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds are great. I got nothing but respect for those guys, but I don't think any airplane holds a candle to the F-22 in front of a crowd. It is just an absolute demonstration machine.
I think it is. I could be wrong, but I think it is so maneuverable that the Thunderbirds could never fly it, or the F-35. I don't think the Blues or the Thunderbirds could fly those jets as a demo team.
I think it'd be cost prohibitive, and there's just not enough of them to go. On the F-22 side anyway. For them
fair enough. Yeah, it is not a
red,
cheap
white,
airplane.
and blue. Yeah, and LO, you're not going to paint the LO coating on that, bright white with red and blue stripes, right? But yeah, so all the F-22s that are used in the demonstration, those are all fully combat ready aircraft, right? And that's why there's always two of them at any air show. Yeah, and the pilots that fly them too. They don't pull pilots out of the pool except for one, the commander of the demo team. The rest of them, we were all combat coded fighter pilots that were ready to go, to war the next day if needed.
Can you over G that jet?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, you can. Okay. It'll let you.
You can. It had limiters on it, but where there's a will, there's a way, my friend. So it's been proven many a time, including by yours truly. So just like anything, right? The dreaded asymmetric over G. And so, if you're down low and you get a little bit of beta, side slip, or you get, asymmetric and you reef back on that stick, it is absolutely possible to overg the F-22, and it will. The problem with the F-22 is there's no way to hide anything, right? It's, the jet
it tells everybody from the Pentagon on down what you did.
Yeah, exactly. And in excruciating detail at the exact microsecond that you did it, so there's no way to hide your mistakes. So, but for the most part, if you were, in a BFM setup, if we were going to do like a 9K, for instance, right, you're going to, you have time because it's a controlled environment to put your lift vector where you want it. And the lift vector is, imagine if you've got a straight line coming out the top of your airplane, right? So you roll and you put that imaginary line right where you want, and you take a second to neutralize the stick, and then you go straight aft. No, it's going to take you to your max G right there, right? So much easier than the C model, which was, you call it flying the T, right? It's much more of a mechanical airplane, much easier to induce, adverse yaw or, a little bit of asymmetric in your pull. And you couldn't just reef back on the stick in the C model either. You actually had a tone that would go off in your headset that would tell you where you were in relation to your max G allowable.
Okay.
But the F-22, it was just reef back on the stick, and as long as you had that lift vector set, it would give you max G.
So Bago's in the background there, and he's he works on the avionics in the F-35. Yeah, backing up exactly what he said. The bricks tell you
nothing.
Yeah.
Can you please, LoJack, be as descriptive as possible and explain what you mean by asymmetric G.
Well,
Our non-fighter pilot listeners.
I wish I had like an airplane on a stick or something, right?
Okay, just don't shoot your watch.
I'm not even wearing a watch. What kind of fighter pilot am I? No silver.
What the hell?
I know.
Jeez.
All right. So asymmetric, right? So like I said, so your lift vector is that imaginary line coming out the top of your airplane, right? So in a controlled environment, so when we are in a BFM set, we know that we're going to control the parameters, our airspeed, altitude, and so that we can go back and we can review every single minute or second of this thing in excruciating detail so that we can learn from it. We have time to roll that lift vector, that imaginary 90-degree line coming out the top of our jet. We know we can put that directly where we want, and then we're going to pull back on the stick to create maximum G. That's going to allow us to have the smallest turn circle or turn that we can have in order to defeat an initial attack by somebody coming in to try to shoot us, right? So that's the basics of the first maneuver in a dogfight. If you introduce side stick, so instead of just pulling straight back on the control stick, if you pulled and rotated a little bit, so instead of just creating this effect with the aircraft, you're creating this effect.
A rolling pull, if you will.
A roll. Or for some weird reason, if you introduced rudder that was going to, or pedal in the F-22's case, it was going to dip the nose down in a yaw while rolling and, not creating a straight pull. You're no longer creating those gravitational forces directly down on top of the wing. You're creating it in asymmetric fashion, almost like a twisting fashion, right? So that's where the airplane isn't happy. It wants to be in a completely straight line, to have all those gravitational forces right on the, evenly spread throughout the airframe.
Okay.
Thank you.
And indeed. And is a side stick or center stick on the 22?
The F-22 is a side stick. So yeah, it was a gentleman's airplane, and it was a big cockpit, right? I never sat in a Harrier, but I mean, the F-15C was like a spare bedroom. Like you had space for days, right? The F-22 wasn't quite as big, but man, it was roomy. The one thing I didn't like about the cockpit was, the C model, the canopy rails were down here by my thighs, right? You can look over and you wouldn't hit you had a bubble. You could see the F-22, the rails were like up here. So a little bit limited.
Up by your shoulders. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Now, Sedlow is asking, you guys carried air-to-ground ordnance, yes or no?
We did, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
That was
in Bombays, right? In
JDAM, yeah. So we carried 1,000-pound JDAMs, and then everything was tucked up. Yeah, everything was internal in the F-22. When we were ferrying an airplane across the pond, or flying over one of the oceans, right? In order to have
you could load external stores,
external fuel tanks, and they did have a crazy configuration that I've actually never seen used, where you could put a couple extra air-to-air missiles on some pylons out there, but if you did that, you're creating parasitic drag, which means that now you've got something hanging off the wing that's going to be more drag resistance to airflow. That's going to lower your fuel efficiency and your top speed, right? And then also you're not going to be stealthy anymore, right? Because the stealth is 80% the shape of the airframe.
Do that once you've got air superiority, and it doesn't matter. But
you could, yeah, but I've never seen it. But yeah, so we would, and talking about keeping everything internal. One of the more challenging things about flying the F-22 is that it didn't have any drag. So trying to slow the thing down was a bitch. I mean, you had a speed brake, but your speed brake was literally your rudder, which was on the back of your V tail that would deflect in, and your ailerons would deflect up. Right. And then you would have another, like your flaps, or you'd have another flight control surface that would deflect down to counter that. But the second you touch the control stick, they would all suck back in. So there was no way to, there you go. Hey, that must be like
Bago is amazing.
Test airplane.
He puts that shit right up, and
I know Bago's
pictures of it online. Go to SoleraWest.us/rumble and you can see this video.
That's just to make a liar out of me. I see how it is.
Yeah. So, you talked about fighter maneuvering in the thing too, but I think it was Chomp said, got got to be able to fight. But if I get to the point where I'm having to turn and fight with somebody, I've already made a lot of mistakes. The 22's got to be that way as well, right? Fifth generation.
No,
yeah,
absolutely, man. The great thing about the F-22 is that we had, first look, first shot, first kill opportunity when I was flying it. Yeah. There wasn't anything else out there that was going to hold a candle to us to be able to go and to put that effect down range to allow the F-16s, F-15s, F-18s, the other guys with air-to-air missiles, more of a clear picture, right? So we could go out and look at how the bad guys were presenting themselves coming across the line. And then you could have a flight of 4 F-22s that would look at that and then be able to shape the picture so that those 4th gen guys could come in and have an easier time handling that air-to-air threat.
Oh,
and,
that's awesome.
We used to like to say that, the first time, Ivan's going to know he's in a fight with us is his buddy blows up next to him. Right.
Right.
So it was, it was an amazing machine. I will counter that now. And I've been out of the community long enough that, I don't know, I'm not super familiar with this, but I think we're losing that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
With the Chinese and Russian technology, I think it's becoming more on par with the F-22. And again, I have no idea what's behind the F-22 or, like coming next with Fighter Next or anything like that. But it was a great time to be an F-22 pilot because you did, back in 2015, feel rather invulnerable.
Ruled the world.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a great place to be.
I remember asking you, because I saw you, and I asked, because you guys were flying from a base south of Al Udeid and going way up north. So these were long missions. I mean, you flew combat missions. It was what, like 6-7 hours?
Oh, at least, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. We would take off from an unnamed base. Oh, that was part of the demo. That was either me or Casey. I forget. I was probably Casey.
Okay, I got a picture of him. Is that an F-86?
Yeah.
So you got a picture of 22 and an F-86 together.
That was on our way to Omaha. I remember that day.
Okay. All right. Sorry, didn't mean for the distraction.
Oh no, that's all right. But yeah, so those trips up the brutal because you take off and hopefully you had a dedicated KC-10 with you, which was awesome because you could just meet up with him and then you just fly on his wing all the way up the ag and just grab gas when you needed it. Those dudes were, the guys that flew tankers in combat, man, nothing but respect for them because they would drop, you'd be like, hey dude, can you drop me off at this point? I'm going to go out here for about an hour and I'll be back with you. And some of them would monitor the fight freak. And then if they knew you were, loitering longer than expected, once you were headed their way, they would actually turn in and fly into Styria just so you didn't have to fly all the way to them so they could get you gas sooner.
Wow.
But yeah,
nice.
Man, those tanker crews were amazing. And, but sometimes you'd get over Iraq and you'd have, tanker tracks set up everywhere. And you'd have to run through your paperwork and see at what time, what tanker, what tail, what altitude you needed to be at your tanker. Those were the nights because you've already been up for like 10 hours, right? And you're like, and it's just a mid-air collision waiting to happen. But yeah, luckily, professionalism shines through and everybody does a great job. But
were you guys flying on Nugs?
Yes. Yeah. For the tanker, mostly only, I remember coming to the C-130 and you guys would fly on Nogs. Like if it was night, you had Nogs. I'm like, well, just turn the runway lights up and take off. Like, why are you doing this under NVGs, right?
Right.
But we didn't necessarily want to be any lower than 20,000 feet too, right? So, terrain wasn't an issue. We had all of our systems, we were heads down doing most of our long range tactics, on our displays too. So we weren't looking outside. And if you are, and I think you had said it earlier, repeat, like, in today's modern warfare, if you're getting wrapped up in a dogfight, something's gone horribly wrong, right? So in fact, we would spread our formations out way further than we did in the C model, or I'm sure in any other 4th gen fighter, just so we didn't have to worry about our wingmen and we could cover more space with our sensors and stuff. But yeah, NVGs for us were just basically to look at the tanker and be like, yep, that's a KC-10.
Nice.
But
Nice. So
yeah,
how much
that
time
was
did you get in those spurts? Each of the C, then the 22.
maybe 900 hours each, I would say.
Okay.
That's
So
a lot. That's
yeah,
a lot of getting
I
in
mean,
and getting out.
it was. It's yeah, especially when you're training, right? Because you're like, an hour at a time.
Yeah.
But those sorties over in, doing Syria certainly helps. Where they were each like 8-9 hours or whatever, and yeah. But we were flying quite a bit back then too. I mean, you were on the flight schedule 3-4 times a week. It seemed like.
Oh my gosh.
And you're hitting tankers whenever you could. And when we started training with JDAM, which is our 1,000-pound bomb, and SDB, which is our small diameter bomb, little bomb with wings that would fly off the jet. You could loiter in the F-22 for a long time. You pull the throttles back and just sit up there at 40,000 feet, right, and have playtime for hours.
Now, so you were flying it when there was was it OBOGs problems, some kind of fumes problems or something? Did you guys ever come across that in your unit?
Yeah. Yes, but there's
Is this
not
something you'd rather not talk about? I see an
This is
uncomfortable look on your face right now.
I don't. It's not anything. And I don't want anybody to read into this or anything like that. It's just and we lost some. We lost some great dudes out there because of the issue too, right? And when you're flying a new airplane, there's going to be kinks to work through. Now that's obviously a big kink, right? Nobody wants to lose anybody. And I don't. Let me put it this way: I'm not familiar enough with the problem that I want to spread any misinformation about it, because there were some great dudes that. And there were some great dudes out there trying their best to make sure that the problem was fixed and move forward. I don't know what state the jet's currently at. I hope for my buddies that are still flying it that it's fixed. But
should we circle back to the?
I think we should. You got the puck
opener.
You got the puck
to the opener. Right.
Yeah.
So this was one of the best and worst nights of my life, man. Best because it was, I've had the opportunity to work with a bunch of different countries' air forces, and we had the Australians and the Canadians with us. And in this particular case, the Canadians were the mission commander, and they were probably the most fun group of dudes, you can have on a deployment, because you're flying up the ag, and they just don't have any standard comm that they were using, at least there. So we would always try to talk them into saying shit like hey, where's the F-18, the Navy F-18 contingent coming from? Like, they're coming from the boat. They should be off the boat here in a little bit. And we're like, they're coming from where? Oh, the boat.
The boat.
The boat. Yeah, geez, the boat.
Das Boot.
And so this was one of those nights that we knew was going to be amazing, because we had a Canadian mission commander. And so my buddy Buzz and I take off, and I'm leading us out, and we have our it's going to be like a cakewalk for us, right? All we had to do was go fly up the ag, get gas, go sit there and loiter at 40,000 feet over eastern Syria, and Putin had just sent his guys into the fight over in western Syria, right? I don't know if you remember what a crazy time that was, because you had, the Russians suddenly in the sticks. It was already confusing. And so they were like, well, send the F-22s up to at least monitor these airfields where we have these guys at. So they're like, whatever. So we're up there at 40,000 feet, and we're just drilling holes in the sky, basically. And lo and behold, a MiG-23 pops up in western Syria. And we're like, finally, we have something to do, right? So we throw our sensors downrange, and we're watching this dude. And the F-22 is amazing, because you can, it's so much fidelity. You can see exactly what he's doing, his altitude, where, and create kind of a pattern of life. And it turned out this guy's must be doing like an airfield fam ride, because he's just sitting around this airfield just doing circles, doing absolutely nothing threatening whatsoever, But it was still pretty fun to get the Canadian, all spun up about it, because, he's oh, geez, yeah, they're coming now. Don't you know? Like, well, let us know if they turn in, It's like, no problem, buddy. We got you. So we're just sitting there, monitoring and this, we'll call it a named country, had a couple fighters on the tanker that were supposed to get in the fight and service some of the DIMPs, which is a fancy way of saying target, desired mean point of impact, right? And so the mission commander, our friendly Canadian, had, counted on those bombs to go service those targets. Well, off the tanker, these dudes go exactly the wrong way, like 180 out from where they're supposed to go. And, our mission commander's talking about it, and he's like, oh, I don't think they're going to get back in the fight. Does anybody else have a couple extra bombs? And my buddy and we actually had 2 extra JDAMs. So between our chuckles, we reached out and we're like, hey, Roman 01, we got you. Just let us know when you want us in to drop. And the Canadian, there's like a pregnant pause, and he goes, oh, you got the puck, shoot. We were like, I'm sorry, man. You got to give me something a little more authoritative than you got the puck, shoot. Like, is that, yeah, we're like cleared in to drop, like, like. So,
standard phraseology right now would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
So we were, Buzz and I were like belly laughing in our airplanes. It was, wiping the tears from our eyes. And we're like, all right, get set up to go in on this run. And it really is nothing, right? We've already got the coordinates in, everything's set in the airplane. All we got to do is fly into, the WEZ, the weapon effectiveness zone. And basically when it says drop, we drop. And as long as the airspace is clear, which we were counting on, you got the puck, shoot, as, the airspace is clear below you. That was it. That was the beginning and end of it, right? But so we get set up for our attack run, and we're flying into the WEZ, and I get the symbology, and I push the little red button, and it suddenly dawns on me that inside of my shoot list is this MiG-23, and I had completely forgotten that I had been tracking this MiG-23 and now switched from air to air to air to ground mode. So,
oh shit!
So. The second I hit the button, it was like, everything inside me just goes into panic mode, right? And I've got one of 2 things are going to happen now. I'm either going to hear a and an M120 is going to come off the rail, take a 90 left, and go off there and turn this MiG-23 into teeth, hair, and eyeballs, and I've inadvertently started World War III. Or I'm going to feel the doors open, and I'm going to feel the familiar clunk of the JDAMs coming off the jet, and everything's going to be fine. And that half a second or whatever it took for those doors to open
lasted about a week.
Lasted about a week, and I remember. I can't even describe the feeling I had of like my stomach just getting tight, like But everything was fine. The JDAMs came off, and when I went back, because, once we landed, and I didn't tell Buzz shit. I was like, I didn't tell him, like, hey, by the way, I almost shot down that MiG-23 we were watching. We fly back, and not only was that, like, time bad, but I knew, we don't keep secrets, right? Like, dude,
right. Everything's there.
Right. If you screw up, if you are flying an F-22 in combat, and you are trusted to do that, and you screw up, you're going to own it. You have accountability. You owe it to your wingman. You owe it to the taxpayer, whatever, But I remember flying back the whole way. Like, how close was I? Was I one HOTAS switch away from shooting down a MiG-23? Because no matter if I was going to have to stand up in front of the squadron. Then I was going to have to stand up in front of the wing commander. Then I was going to, it's fine, willing to do it. But we get back on the deck, and I run back in and throw my tape in, and we tape everything. You tape all your sensors. You even have a camera watching you.
Well, the tape wasn't working that day.
No, you don't do that, right? But I threw them back in, and all of that training had paid off. I had gone through the standard, HOTAS, whatever.
I don't think we've
dropped
defined
it out of my
HOTAS
shoelace.
here. So it's hands on throttle and stick. It's all your switchology. It's on two places. You don't have to move your hands all over the place. So, okay.
Right.
Sorry, keep going.
And what happens is, when you fly an aircraft that's HOTAS centric, right, it's muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
So doing everything, using your comm, speed brake, moving your sensors around, switching your displays up. And when I went back and looked at it, everything was completely kosher. I had dropped him from the shoot list, so I was no longer had him, to where he was, I could fire a weapon at him. And I had moved into air to ground mode. There was no way an A120 was going to come off the airplane. But at that time, and looking back on it, and listening to the comm, like we were way too wrapped up with the "you got the puck, shoot," comment. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The other, that we heard that, I didn't process that I had dropped him and, done the switchology to get it in there. But
well, that's why we use standard phraseology in the airlines, and it helps to use it there because that kind of distraction is exactly what leads to world-class screw-ups. And when you're using standard phraseology and you aren't surprised by something or distracted by it, then that wouldn't have lasted so long. I don't think that period between the trigger pull and
well, in your training took over. You had muscle memory going on.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You did the right
helpful.
thing. You just don't realize you did the right thing.
You just didn't realize it, right? But still, like the consequence of the wrong thing was so great that at that moment that took over, and then that created doubt and everything too, right? So,
folks, go listen to the Dos Gringos song "World War III."
Our good friends. That's right. It's exactly that scenario.
It is that scenario. But I had at that point I had been an air-to-air guy, right, for 15 years, right? So, and that was the first time in my career I had the opportunity to put a sensor on somebody that could be quasi considered, a bandit or a bad guy, right? So, almost completely pissed it away.
So Sidlow says, "Hey, you might have got a medal for that." Well, actually,
he did.
He did get a medal for that.
Yeah.
Somebody on this podcast may have actually pinned it on him.
Yeah, that's right.
At a later date.
Hint: it wasn't me.
Hey, that's a good segue. So, how did you go from F-22 fighter steely-eyed killer to a trash hauler? How did that happen?
It was all.
I mean, I know, but let's
Okay, well, hey, before you go there, the other question that I have, and here's what I don't want to ask it now. I want to ask, which is a better story for our Patreon, that or how'd you get your call sign?
Oh, that's a good story too.
Okay, well, let's save the call sign for Patreon.
Yeah, that's a good.
So all right,
that's really good.
Yeah. So how'd you wind up in C-130s?
Okay.
Yeah. LoJack, how did you wind up in C-130s?
It's all because of a girl. So, yeah. How does every great fighter pilot story start? It started with a 6-foot inflatable. Yeah. Well, sorry. That's if you were in the bar back in my areas. How does every great fighter pilot song start? But yeah, so there I was floating down a river on a fraternity float trip with a 6-foot inflatable killer whale behind my canoe. This was right after that deployment, and that's there's a lot more to that, but that's basically how I met my wife, right? So, and then a quick kidnapping charge later.
Hold on. Just to be clear, folks, his wife is not the 6-foot killer whale. Just
no,
saying.
she was the hot redhead that jumped in after the 6-foot inflatable killer whale.
There you go.
I should have probably put that part in the story, right? But yeah, then there was a minor kidnapping charge after that from the local police department, and then she found my number on a picnic table I wrote in charcoal to alert her friends that I had taken her back to my campsite. She called me. I was back in Virginia at the time, and I was doing the F-22 demo. So I was basically a professional, air show guy for that summer. And so our first date was off at Air Force Base, and then somewhere in Iowa. Third date was at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii. And I knew things were getting kind of serious there, and that this was probably going to be the one. And I heard the announcer say that the Leapfrogs were jumping out of a C-130 that was flown by your Missouri Air National Guard. So I asked the Navy SEALs that were there, that were part of the Leapfrog demonstration team, like, hey, do you got their contact information? And I wound up giving them a call and asked them if they had ever considered hiring somebody from the fighter world. And they were like, yeah, sure, come on down, we'll hire anybody. So
they hired Fig.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
I made my way over to St. Joe, Missouri, and met up with them, I think over like a Christmas break or something like that, when Jen and I were together. And that's when I kind of got that, like, hey, you want to come fly C-130s, man, we're not going to stop you. Yeah, just let us know when you're available, right? And met Fig, and at that point, like, who's going to turn down the opportunity to fly with one of the greatest aviators in the world, Fig Newton?
Right.
So, yeah, I still had that combat deployment that we were talking about. That was like a 9-month combat deployment. That thing was a beast, but that was still looming. So I was like, hey, let's put this off for a year. We'll reattack it. Went and did the combat deployment, came back from there, and they still had the job waiting for me. So I said goodbye to my F-22 buddies and ran off and got married and lived happily ever after. Honestly, it was,
here we are.
And here we are. It was, I brushed through that whole story pretty quick, but it was, I think I'd come to that point in my career too, though. I was, kind of had the t-shirt. I didn't necessarily want to go over to Tyndall and teach. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I knew, like, hey, I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to be with my current wife. And that was the best decision I ever made.
Nice.
So it all worked out. Yeah. And then I got to go fly the C-130 with Fig Newton, do 2 more combat deployments. And,
there you go.
And that was a great adventure as well, man. I mean, I get that question a lot. You're sitting there talking to your airline captain for 7 hours on the way to Anchorage, and that question eventually comes up, like, why'd you leave the F-22? And
yeah, what were you thinking?
what were the major differences and stuff? But I'll tell you, man, that there's no the guys that flew the C-130 is the same cut. I mean, they were great dudes. They were great pilots. So they are great pilots. And they would have made great F-22 guys. It's circumstantial where they wound up. So I felt right at home moving into the squadron. They made me feel right at home, and had some great adventures with them as well. And to be honest with you, like, flying the C-130 is good for the soul in a lot of ways, right? Like doing HURVAC missions, doing kind of, some of the relief missions, right? You're not flying over a determined point in space and pushing a little red button and dropping bombs off your jet.
Plus it's such an iconic airplane. It's tough as nails.
Well, you get the C-130 takes you places you never envisioned you'd ever be, ever.
Never want to go back to.
Some places that you never want to go again.
Right.
But at least you're there with like 6 of your best friends, right?
That's right. That's another thing. Yeah, wherever you go, you get 5 drinking buddies with you.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that was great, man. I remember one time flying. What were we doing in 2018? It was some hurricane down by Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
And we were supposed to, I forgot how we wound up there, but it was basically like, hey, take a C-130, go fly somewhere, and we'll give you a mission. And we took it for like 2 weeks, and it was no kidding, like, just go pick up this generator, take it here, blah, blah, blah. We wound up in like St. Kitts maybe, and like 2 a.m. And I remember we offloaded a bunch of stuff, and we were onloading a bunch of people that were just trying to get off the island, and they were all leaving friends and family behind. And we got a wife and 2 kids, and the dad was staying behind it. And these 2 kids were just wrecked. And I think they're maybe like my girl's age now, right? Like 6 and 8. And they were just in shambles, hadn't showered in a week, and they, were just eating MREs probably, and terrified, absolutely terrified of leaving their home and their dad. And the mom was exhausted. And I remember the mom was just like, I just want to sleep. So we brought the 2 kids up, and they sat on the flight deck, and the back was just packed. And we made the mama cot back there, and she passed out, and we took off. And those two kids were, they were just, the second they got to see that and have that kind of experience, they had something else to hang on to for a second. And then on climb out, they were out, and they slept the entire way back to Savannah. And I'll tell you, usually a C-130 flight deck with the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and navigator, we're always talking. You're keeping yourself awake, you're doing whatever. That 3.5 hours, nobody said a damn word, right? Because it was just let those kids sleep, let them have their peace, because, it'll be chaos again when they land. But I remember thinking, dude, that is good for the soul. That is doing something that has a direct effect on somebody's life. And that was a cool moment. That was one of the, of all the combat and stuff. I remember that as one of the best experiences of my career.
Nice. Very nice.
That's a good story right there, buddy.
That is an excellent story. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, listen, we've been going at this for an hour and 46 minutes.
Yeah.
Really?
I know it doesn't seem like it, but holy shitballs.
Yeah.
Should we land the plane?
I think we got to land the airplane. Yeah. So we need to say some thank yous. First and foremost to LoJack. Thank you for your service. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. This has been a lot of fun. Very fun show.
It's an honor to hear your stories, and now we got them. So when your daughters get a little older, and they can hear Dad's stories.
Down for posterity. So, yeah. Thank you also to none other than Dave Hamilton. Dave runs a little company called Backbeat Media. Backbeatmedia.com handles our advertising. If you've got a show and you need some advertising, reach out to backbeatmedia.com and see if they can help you too. Any other thank yous, Fig? What do you think?
Well, let's see. We need to thank our Patreons.
Absolutely. We've
for
got
some unknown reason keep throwing money at us, and it's very humbling. But you know what? We really appreciate you doing that. It keeps the lights on.
It does. Lack of judgment on your part is okay with us.
Serious lack of judgment.
Right? We had a tanker aircraft commander show up last week. Todd Wolfman is my call sign for him. So he's a tanker aircraft commander, and we'll talk more about him in the preamble to this, the intro. But he is a Air Force surgeon, if I recall from my emails back and forth with him.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anonymous threw $100 at us. You know who you are, and we know who you are. So thank you very much. Hey, we got a new section lead this week too, Fig, and I'm not sure he's smooth enough on the controls, but maybe. Guy goes by Lawman. Might have heard of him.
Oh, for the love of Pete.
Yeah.
The boss is hamming. He ain't moving nothing, Lawman. Join up for crying out loud.
That's right. Well, he's the section lead now, so don't move nothing there, Lawman. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah. And then Caesar gave us some money, and I asked him if he wanted a shout out or anything. He said, you know what? Give a shout out to the reactor and engineer departments on the carriers for keeping the screws turning and the lights burning and the water flowing and the cats steaming. The enlisted guys and ladies in those departments work their asses off, and he is not incorrect. So, and also thank you to Master, who's been with us well over a year now, throwing money at us. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Hey, our sponsor this week, HelloFresh, thank you very much for coming back and showing faith in us and helping us keep these wonderful stories coming to everybody and throwing all these terms out that no one's ever heard of. Where would you go if you want to look those up, Fig?
We have a glossary. Have a glossary. So there I was.us/glossary. And if you heard a term, because we throw out a lot of acronyms, HOTAS.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
HOTAS.
it's there. It'll be there. And if for some reason we've missed it,
right to Bago.
Right to Bago saying, Bago, what the hell does this mean? And it'll be there because he's that.
And he'll
good.
write the sticks and get an answer, and then he'll put it up.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know what? Write to any one of us. Fig at sotherowas.us, repeat at sotherowas.us, Bago, just BAGO at sotherowas.us, or sticks if you want a good answer.
Sticks and Bago are really important to this whole damn operation.
Hey, the other thing you need to do is go to SoleraWoz.us/rate and give us 5 stars. Count them 5. 1 for every thumb and finger. Get it done. If you're going to give 4 stars or less, go to some other podcast and give it to them.
Listen, if you can't give us 5 stars, tell us what would make it 5 stars.
Right?
We're
Fig's trainable.
Yeah. We're trainable.
Exactly.
For the most part. I don't know, my wife doesn't think so, but, the government did.
Yeah. And then there's one more slipping my mind. Who might it be?
That sound is the beautiful sound of the Dos Gringos. They were guests on our podcast way back when. They let us use their music. And by the way, there is not a bad song on any of the 4 albums that they put out.
Not a one. Go listen to World War III. Our theme song is 12-inch penis.
Listen, it's 12-inch penis because it says, so there I was. And by the way, LoJack pretty much is the reason why they wrote World War III.
There you go.
In his story right there. For a second there, he might have started World War III.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't, LoJack.
Yeah. Probably safer that we didn't. So, all right. And thanks to all who are watching online on SoleraWoz.us/rumble and SoleraWoz.us/YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Oh, and Badass. We almost forgot Badass.
Badass Silcott, BDS Aviation.
Photography.com.
Badass. Yep. And we're going to do a quick extra, right?
Yep, we're going to do an extra. And that'll be up this week for our Patreon members to hear how LoJack got his call sign.
Yeah, Marcus
in the meantime,
Monte saying, can't wait to hear the call sign.
In the meantime, I think stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Hey, Fig, my hearing ain't what it used to be. What'd he say?
He said it's over.
Giggity.
And we're out.
Woo!